your input for the board. Then you want to do roll call?
Well, here, Mr. Bergen.
Here.
Mr. Eads.
Here.
Chief Gates.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Sheriff Motley.
Here.
Mr. Pointer.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here. Okay. First item on our agenda is an opportunity for comments from our audience, from the public. So we'd open up for that. Is there any comments anyone would like to make?
I've got a few.
State your name, please.
John Kraft with a K.
Thank you.
First of all, we were handed this piece of paper when we walked in. I would like to know what book or statute that came out of, because I don't believe the statute specifically states what is highlighted. Second, I would like to have the rule of right to revert to prior order of business inserted in your agendas prior to the executive session or prior to adjournment. It's in Robert's Rules of Orders. Right to revert to prior business. It is in Robert's Rules of Orders. If you look at it, then.
Okay, we'll just look into that.
Okay, thanks. And if the bills that you're about to approve for payment are the usual bills, I believe you have one that without an invoice and without a receipt in the amount of $3,000. I would urge all of you not to pay that bill. There's no invoice and there's no receipt for it. And it's for rent. And I have the rental agreement here, and it says $1 a year. The other thing is, I understand you're going to talk about possibly merging county and city 911 dispatchers or offices. And I just want to make sure that you look into the possible increase of the sheriff's budget, since he won't be getting paid for 911 dispatching if this happens, and he would still have to have his own dispatchers. Or if that's even a possibility that he would need to increase his budget for that.
I'll give between him and the county.
And last, I have the rental agreement for $1 a year, and I would like to know if there was any resolution that changed any part of this lease agreement since it was signed the 15th of July 1998. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I just nobody else will quit.
Donna Fromberg. I don't know if this is the appropriate forum, but since I have addressed this issue with the 911 coordinator a couple times before, and my request was ignored, I thought I would bring it to a public forum. Maybe the public needs to be aware. As you know, most of the time there's only one dispatcher on duty, one 911 dispatcher on duty. Yesterday I took an extremely emergency call. Seconds counted. All emergency calls are important, but this one's seconds counted. As I was trying to dispatch ambulance, fire, and give them the information they needed to respond to this call, also send police units, I got yet another 911 improper use call. The caller, when I had to pick it up, it was a 911 call. The first thing out of his mouth was, "I don't have an emergency, I just want the number to the business line." I disconnected the call. I have asked that the 911 coordinator send out letters to people who know make these calls and remind them that 911 is for emergencies only. Include a list of the non-emergency telephone numbers for their convenience. Maybe put something in the paper once in a while reminding people that 911 is for emergencies only. It's not to call to see what time the mall closes in Terre Haute. Yes, I've taken that call on 911. It's not to call to see if their buddy's in jail. It's not to call to get a number for another department. It's for emergencies. I've asked before and been ignored. I'm asking again. I feel it's important.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kirk Allen, I've got some questions. Is it safe to assume the handout that you gave pertaining to answering questions that you don't have any intention of answering any questions, or how do we perceive that?
Would be our option whether we answer or not. And again, that's why that was passed out. We're not here to debate. We're not here to give on-the-spot answers as the statute says.
Okay. I read the statute. I'm not sure that verbiage is exactly what the statute is, but I'll look into that. It appears to be out of the township handbook. I asked some questions at the last meeting. Have not heard back again. At the last meeting, Mr. Clark, you stated the record is clear and that in November of 1996 a meeting was held at the Kansas Village and the pager issue was decided. That statement is totally false, and the record proves that. I brought the record with me. There was no such meeting in November of 1996 with anybody from Kansas, nor was it held in Kansas as you stated. So I'm not sure what record you reviewed, but that wasn't the one. I also brought up the issue in regarding to the illegal pay raise. I asked the question, what's the board going to do pertaining to the implementation of an illegal pay raise by less than a majority of the board? I have not heard an answer back on that. Is there anything that's going to be done about that? No response?
Just that we'll look into that, and we have. That's it. Yes.
When you say we'll look into it, would that be the boards look into it or individuals have?
This is the board, I'm speaking for the board, we'll look into that.
You say you will look into it or you have? I'm sorry.
We will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In regards to the illegal meeting by phone and illegal votes taken pertaining to the coordinator's contract in 2010, that action was taken without public notice of a meeting, without an agenda, and total secret to the public. Is this board aware that that was an illegal act?
We'll just have to look into that.
Okay. What's the coordinator's work schedule, if I may ask? What kind of hours does our coordinator obligated in our contract? I didn't see any work criteria in the contract as far as what the duty schedule, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you would refer to.
You've got the contract, so it's how it reads.
Okay. Is the board aware that the coordinator is working and receive pay from another division of county government while also being a full-time salaried employee of this board? You're aware of that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, she's received over $8,500 from the sheriff's budget in conjunction with her salary on this board. I find that terribly inappropriate, especially since she's a salaried head of a department. I'm surprised that no one was aware of that. I would hope now that you are, that that's going to be addressed, because that's the taxpayers' money that's being used inappropriately in many people's opinion. Whether there's a statute that forbids it or not, I'm not sure yet. But to be hired while you're working one job and doing another is pretty unethical in my opinion. Did this board, now I understand some of you folks were not on this board at different times. In this particular event, some of you were, some of you were not. Did this board approve spending of petty cash for the coordinator's incidentals without the requirement of keeping receipts? Incidentals being her pop, coffee, and etc.
You have all the documentation we have. So.
I have a document that's signed by you, Mr. Clark, that you claim that the board approved this with her signature as well. Interestingly, nowhere in the minutes does any such approval appear. I find that very odd. The Illinois Constitution requires records and reports of all expenditures of public funds. There's no minutes reflecting this was ever approved, and the law requires receipts of any public money being spent. Since there's nothing in the board minutes reflecting that, is it safe? I guess we can only assume that you've approved that action, although the document says that the board approved it. Anybody that would like to review that document, I have a copy with me. I'll be more than happy to share it with you. How does this board account for thousands of dollars spent on gifts with no documentation to support what gifts or who got those gifts? Are you aware that those gifts were being given out?
You have the minutes.
I have the minutes. You're correct. 2006, documentation under a FOIA request provided $100 to individuals who handled the majority of the dispatching. What was actually spent was $1,150. The 100 doesn't go into $1,150. I'm curious where the other 50 went, as well as the rest of it, because again, the Constitution requires documentation to support all expenditures. 2007, $150. And if I may note, these 3 years that I'm going to reference, there's nothing in the minutes that approved these dollar figures. 2007, $150 to individuals who handled the majority of dispatching. Actual spent was $1,450. That also does not divisible by 150. There's an extra $100 there not accounted for on top of the rest of it. 2007, it was $100, the same thing. $1,150 was cashed out, yet only $100 was given to each person. So those are some things that under the Constitution we're required to have records for, and nobody seems to have them. Anybody familiar with the dispatchers getting shirts from Cabela's? Under the Freedom of Information, I would like to have a copy of the invoice of that purchase from Cabela's. I find nothing in the minutes that authorized dispatchers could spend a certain amount. I was told by dispatchers, whether that's true or not, I was told that they could spend up to a certain limit. There's no reference of that anywhere in the minutes. Another form of unaccountability to our tax money. Fees that are collected. I understand you don't like to call it tax money. Was the board aware that the coordinator hired someone to clean her office and file papers? I don't see anywhere in her contract that she has hiring authority. I'm assuming since no one wants to answer, we're just not going to answer. If we're hiring someone to clean our office and file our papers, why didn't that payment go through the treasurer's office for proper payroll accounting? It was petty cash. Noted, no response. Proper IRS tax forms, did they get submitted? According to the treasurer's office, they didn't. Anybody know who was hired? She hired her daughter, paid her with petty cash. I didn't see that approval in the minutes either. No record of any approval for her to hire anyone to clean her office and help file papers, but I guess it's okay if the next thing we see is a stipend in her pay to file her papers and clean her office. But may not have to do that, so she can just do it out of petty cash. Did this board authorize, and this accounts to everybody, because I believe other than maybe Chief Gates, everybody's been on this board during this action. Did this board authorize your coordinator to use the Illini FS gas card for her own personal line of credit for fuel purchase above and beyond the authorized $200 limit? The minutes do not reflect such an action was ever approved. Are you aware such an action is a violation of the Illinois Constitution and could be a felony as upheld by the Illinois Supreme Court, even if it's paid back? And I can provide you a case from the Illinois Supreme Court that just recently took place that specifically took that action only for doing it 3 times. Your coordinator's done it over 30 times. Did this board authorize the coordinator to hire someone to fill in while she's on vacation? Again, we're hiring someone and we're paying them out of petty cash. I believe in filling the spot if it needs to be filled, but when it's done out of petty cash, IRS is not notified, State of Illinois is not notified, Department of Revenue was never notified, it didn't go under their pay, it was done through petty cash. That's terribly inappropriate, and if the board doesn't know about it, maybe they should. Does the board agree with the statute and the fact that the board members are not to be compensated? Is that a yes?
You have the statute, we have it.
Does the board agree with that?
We're not going to agree with anything.
Okay, the statute clearly says the board members are not to be compensated. Can someone please explain why your secretary, Cindy Bell, according to the county treasurer's records, received cash via petty cash and gifts according to your own minutes in 2001 through 2004? I have those minutes and records with me if you'd like to review them. If that's not compensation, what is it? And if it was a gift for appreciation, we can agree that that was an expense that's outside the statute of ETS of what expenditures can be used for. I was told almost a year ago that our 911 center is an enhanced 911. According to the Illinois Commerce Commission and the Illinois Department of Health, who handles the certification matters for dispatchers, it's not possible to be enhanced with only one dispatcher on duty. How is it we're enhanced when we have shifts that only have one dispatcher? It's not possible according to the state. So I was either lied to or someone doesn't know what enhanced is. What's my point with raising all this? It's accountability, Mr. Clark. It's clear we have none with the majority of this board who has allowed these things to happen and in many cases condoned, defended, and lied to the public. And I have been lied to, and documentations prove that. It's time for someone to be held accountable. And I understand some members on this board were not involved in this act, and I'm not directing a lot of that to you folks. But some folks know exactly what I'm talking about, and the record supports everything that I've said here tonight. I have yet to get answers to questions, meeting after meeting after meeting. I'm done, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next item, we have the minutes from our October meeting. Everyone has a copy. Any additions, corrections, or deletions? I would entertain a motion to approve them. D, second? Second. Jeff?
Yes. Mr. Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
Yes.
Chief Gates?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Sheriff Motley?
Present.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. You have also now in your packet the report from the Edgar County Treasurer. Showing our current balance at the end of November, $722,000, $722,3237. Is there any questions? Comments? Page 5. And it's number 4. If not, a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Dave? Absolutely. Okay, second. Ryan? Thank you.
Mr. Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
No. No, I'm sorry. This is, yes. I'm sorry, yes.
Chief Gates?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Sheriff Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Bell, yes.
Also within that report, we had a certificate of deposit that matured at First Bank and Trust. That was reinvested for us by the treasurer for 21 months at 1%. First Bank and Trust. Any question on that?
Document is it, please? What number?
It's not on the document, it's on your treasurer's report, the last item. I'm sure November the 5th, I believe it was.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we need a motion to approve the actions of the treasurer.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second. send it out.
Mr. Eads,
Yes.
Chief Gates,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley,
Yes.
Mr. Pointer,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Belt, yes, Mr. Bergen.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, you have the bills for the month of November. Page 13.
What page is it? 13?
Yeah.
Could you
Everybody-
add it to the
every-
report?
Everybody find that 13 and 14? And if you want to go through those for us, please.
The ones that aren't their usual bills would be Benjamin's. I specifically stated there what I got. We were billed for Sharon Wilson's overtime, retaining EMD, the sticker for the vehicle, and an oil change. We were not billed in July for the liability, property coverage, and the auto. And they discovered that and got that to us, and then signed blanks for house members who were out of it.
Any questions on the November?
Just one,
November.
just one question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
On the $212, it was meeting 50, what's the insurance part? What is that for? Is that car insurance or is that health insurance?
Oh, it's dental,
No.
dental health,
Right.
yes, reimbursement.
Any other questions? Then we would need a motion to leave that there. Yeah, these were the ones that were paid. Need a motion to approve those. Dave? Second. Dee? Thank you.
Chief Gates,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley,
No.
Mr. Pointer,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Belt, yes, Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
Mr. Eads.
No. Thank you. Next item are the bills for the month of December to be paid. You want to do those for us then?
Yeah, the Barbeck Communications bill, we thought this actually was a problem, but it ended up being a power outage. That Interstar fixed, and Barbeck was on site until they got it fixed. We received a call from Clear Talk that our antenna down there looked like it was about to fall off, and got a hold of Griffin Tower to fix that. I've itemized postage in one item there, a dry erase board for the office door to make notes on. I've itemized that all out. We need a roll of stamps and the quarterly payment for dispatcher.
Okay, is there any questions on the bills to be paid?
Are these all the bills? Working?
Yes.
You got the normal bills?
There's a couple that disappeared.
I got a question on the Barbeck communication stuff. Is that like a contract where that we're under with them, where they pay?
No, we do not have a contract.
They just
with
charge
them
us every time they
currently.
come out?
Yes. I can check into that if you'd like me to.
Are you ready for the motion?
I just try and get his question.
Did you get your question answered, Ron? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They just, currently they just bill hourly. Currently they just bill for.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just missed,
Hang on.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve December bills, but I'd like to exclude the administration fees, the treasurer rent, and the quarterly payment for dispatching. Excluding the treasurer administration fees, the treasurer's rent,
$465.
and the quarterly payment of $12,000 for dispatching. That'd be a total of $15,465.42.
It is, okay.
Second.
Second from Dave.
Mr. McCroplin,
No.
Sheriff Motley,
No.
Mr. Pointer,
No.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Bill, yes, Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
Mr. Eads,
Yes.
Chief Gates.
Yes.
So the motion carried. We are not paying those 3 bills.
Right. However, it's something that we need to look into between now and the next meeting.
This will buy us some time to look into that and get that taken care of.
Okay, well, to get with some clarification and some additional understanding. Okay? Okay. I was just thinking, that's the December bills. I just had all about the January. Yeah, but they won't be paid ahead of time.
I was going to talk about that in another business.
Okay, all right, good enough. Okay, Dee, thank you. Okay. Next, your report, Nanette,
I wanted to,
page 17 in our packet, right?
the Barbeck bill goes along with the first part of my report. On October 5th, we had a power outage, and it was at the tower there in Edgar. And that radio equipment on it was affected because the UPS didn't last long enough. That they're not maintaining that tower there very well. American Tower's not, and they don't have a generator. So the Barbeck people suggested that I contact Cellular One and see about moving, because that Cellular One tower's less than a half a mile away. And I did finally get an answer last Friday from them that they will allow us to put all of our stuff on their tower. So I will pursue this and find out costs and everything to get it moved. So does anybody have any questions or concerns or issues with doing this?
I think the obvious pro to that is he's got a generator there, right?
Those cell one towers are very well maintained
Right.
and everything, so it would be definitely a win for us. So. And then I wanted to mention that we had a outage. Frontier had a line cut November 16th, and we along with all the surrounding counties were out of service for 911, and we had to man the call boxes, which the fire departments in our county do this for us. We currently pay the departments $25 an hour for this valuable service, and I would ask the board to consider an increase of this fee for the fire departments. We couldn't do this without them. The 8 call box locations that they had to be manned for 4 hours, and then Chrisman Fire helped us a couple days later for a problem on that call box for another hour. So this service, we just really can't put a price on it, and I think that raising this fee to help show our appreciation would be great. And I'll be filing the annual report with the Commerce Commission in January.
What's the fee now?
25 is what we pay now, 25 an hour.
You're wanting,
I just,
what do you think it should?
Well, let's get some questions. Oh, well, okay.
What's
Well,
I was just gonna ask what you think a fair rate would be now.
it'll be 35, and I guess
Does it take one person to do it, or two?
well, Brian can kind of speak with.
Well, it should take one person per station. It's going to take one person, because all you're doing is answering the phone, you're writing down the stuff, and then we're letting the county know.
Via radio, I take it.
Yeah, when I talk to him, when we call him on the radio, if we can contact him, otherwise, that day, cell phones would still ring in, landlines wouldn't, so they told us to contact him either way. But one person is what we send over there.
And can you tell me what your rate is on your overtime rate for one person?
The base overtime rate's probably going to be around $30, $35. So, and I'm just kind of ballparking highest,
Like an average.
the guy's been there longest compared to the new person, kind of averaging out. So,
And I send the check directly to the fire department, and then how they choose to, if they want to pay an individual, if Brian chose to pay an individual, or
We just pay the fire.
but we make the check to the fire department.
So we're talking about overtime people, sometimes.
In
Sometimes,
this
yeah.
case, it would be.
yeah.
Oh, those 8 call boxes, how many's in your district?
We just have one.
It's 8 different departments manning those. Of those.
So out of the other ones, they're probably all volunteer departments anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some compensation law about volunteer firefighters getting paid, right? So we just pay the fire department, let them do with it, they can buy equipment or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions for Nanette?
I have to know what amount was proposed.
Well, we're going to get
We'll
that in a
need a
minute.
motion.
Need a motion to make. Okay, no other questions for Nanette. We'll make that part of the minutes and her report. Okay. The next item, number 10, deals with what Nanette has suggested to us. We currently pay $25 an hour to the departments to man those. And that's the way it's been from day one when we set that. Is there interest or increasing that particular rate to 30, 35, whatever?
I would move that we increase the rate to 35 an hour.
I'll second.
So the motion is to do that.
And I can pay at the new rate.
And at the new rate. Okay.
Hey, this, what date was that?
16,
So that would be approximately $1,750,
roughly.
roughly, right?
Without the calculator, that's about right. Yeah. Okay.
Sheriff Motley,
Yes.
Mr. Pointer,
No.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Belt, yes, Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
Mr. Eads,
Yes.
Chief Gates,
One abstained since it benefit my department.
Mr. McCracken.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, page 18, 19, and 20, we had a committee to address requests from the Edgar County Ambulance Service in relation to putting a frequency in our console with the Sheriff's Department. Dee, you want to make any comments on that? Dee headed up the committee for us.
Yeah, we met 2 different times. The first time October 17th, and the second time November 21st. The committee basically had 2 issues on this. The first issue is to add the frequency to the 911 console. The second issue is to have 911 fund that action. We talked to Barback. We have quotes from them. The committee would recommend that the only way the frequency be added is that it also has to have an instant recorder on that frequency so that dispatchers can, when they're overloaded, they can go back and get the times off of that frequency. We would not recommend putting the frequency in without an instant report for the benefit to help the dispatcher when they're busy. The price for the instant recorder is $21.19. The price for the radio was $14.06, and the labor to put them both in was $5.75. We checked with the sheriff as far as since the dispatchers work for him. He says he does not have a problem with them answering that radio if it is added to the console. So that would be the committee's report back to the board.
Okay. Any questions for Dee?
I was at that meeting, obviously on that committee. Did I have a question? We have one in there right now, digital card in there.
Yes, we have one spot.
Is it, but that did, like, Paris PD's in there?
Yes, Paris PD.
Is it on a recorder?
Paris PD is not because the dispatchers don't talk on Paris PD frequency as far as answering.
Oh.
To go back to get times.
Oh, okay.
But
Like
it is not.
Paris, yeah, that's true. I guess they wouldn't have to.
There's three instant recorders. High band, F1, and 911. Is that
No, phone 911 and
phone 911?
The phone
High band
by-
is not on.
The phone is by itself.
Okay. So we would recommend not to have this because they use that tremendously when there's an emergency to go by.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so the next item then that we need to address, number 11, or 12, is a motion to allow the Paris ambulance to add their frequency to our console, excluding using the recorder, correct? That's
I
correct.
would make that motion.
Okay.
That we allow them to add their frequency to the 911 console on the grounds that it has to have an instant recorder added to for that frequency.
Motion is a second. Second. Any other questions?
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Bill, yes. Mr. Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
No. No.
Chief Gates?
What we make a motion on right now, make sure we're following this too.
Is just to allow them to use that empty slot on their frequency and not to use a recorder.
Mr. McCroffin? Sheriff Motley?
Yes.
And then since our first initial request from ambulance service to put it in, then in this committee meetings, it was clarified that they would also like for this board to fund the installation of that, as well as the recorder and the other things that go along with it. Eric has filled out a formal request of funds for us to do that.
Page 20.
Page 20. Again, it's we'll need a motion to either, or whatever we decide to do. As far as personally, we've talked about this type of thing before. We have our policy has been to purchase or fund those things which are specific to an individual department in the county. We have 19 emergency services, I believe, that we answer for. And in the past, this has just been our policy not to fund these specific things. It's something that will not benefit the entire county and the entire system. What's the big intent? Is there a motion? There being no motion, we'll move on. The next item that we have is we need to set the meeting dates for the coming year, 2010, 2011-12 year. That is on page 21. And this is 21. Okay, thank you. As you can see, February 6th, 9th, June 12th, August 6th, October 15th, and December 10th, or June 11th, excuse me. A couple of those dates are not on the first Monday of the month we have in the past because of things in October we have a holiday, and then a couple of the other months, the first falls around the first day of the month, or the first Monday falls on the first day of the month, and it's really impossible for the county treasurer to get their information to us. So these are all Monday dates, however, they're not necessarily all of them on the first Monday of the month. We would also propose to move our meeting time to 4:30 in the afternoons. One, I think it'd be a little more convenient for everybody, as well as some other potential reasons for that. Any questions, discussions, or thoughts? If not, then entertain a motion then to set our meeting dates for the next year that we have listed there, and to move our time to 4:30 in the day, and of course the meetings will be held here.
I guess I'd be on one.
Okay.
Sometimes court runs over.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's an issue, I just want it to be on the public record. We will have to wait until 4 days.
Okay.
Over to come in.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of times it doesn't get over until 5.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Motion Cindy. Second. Dee. Thank you.
Bill, yes. Mr. Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
Present.
Chief Gates?
Yes.
Mr. McCrocken?
Yes.
Sheriff Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure I probably do too, but I've been flipping through these things in my occasions. Anyway, next item on the agenda, we have the budget for fiscal year of 2011 and 12. That's pages 22 through 25. Has everyone located those? And the budget for the year on that Treasurer supplies for us is the last column is called Board Approval on this particular sheet that Don has submitted for us. There's really not a lot of change within that, other than the biggest changes are the receipts that we get from the landlines. Those continue to decline. That's the biggest impact that we have on our income side. The expenses on the other side have stayed pretty much relatively the same. No, at this point, no major adjustments to those. Based on what we have here, we run at about a $60,000 deficit next year. In other words, the income or the expenses would exceed our income by about $60,000. The other reason for that is our investments or CDs were just a couple, 3 years ago, we had about a 4% average. Right now we're running about not quite 1%. So. Are there any questions or additional explanations we need, or you find that okay, Brian? Probably.
Yeah, I'm just going through and picking up.
Sure. And we can take a moment and do that.
building maintenance are we talking about? Here at the courthouse, or are we talking about at the jail?
Yeah. Basically, it's the equipment room in the jail.
And what, I don't know, what maintenance?
We
on
put
the equipment?
we put the air conditioner in this year. That fell under that. So anything we would do, like, that would be on the particular building.
Brad, a few of these items are estimates, just like the building maintenance. So we got in that category, allotting something for those things.
So what you're asking for is a motion to approve this budget, right?
Yes.
For a deficit spending, is that
I don't know. I mean, in my day, budgets, number one, guide. And number two, we can come back and look at this and see what, as we monitor this, to see what adjustments we can or need to make.
And that's one of the reasons we're going to review the bills for next week.
Yeah, correct.
And bring back into the balance sheet.
Yeah.
This needs to be approved tonight for the coming year. I mean, I hate approving a budget that's going to show real bad unless, there's options in there to go through and
Well, one of the options for us is what we did not approve tonight. If it's stopped, that's not good.
so that'll overcome the $60,000 deficit. Okay.
That's why this measures
So I think that's the thought process here is we need to, or we'd like to approve this budget, and then we're going to have some continuing discussions here on, as you just suggested, Brian, what we do to shorten that gap or bring that together. And those are the major areas that we have to look at. No, that's the same. Okay, so we'll change that. Any other questions or thoughts?
So another thing that was added in here too, as information, was we are going to put out a new set of maps when we go around to update all the rooms. That's a $10,000 expense that we don't see every year. When was the last time it was done? 5 years?
It's been at least 5 years, I imagine. Yeah.
That was one thing that did make the budget a little bit different this year too.
But again, we're still going to battle the decrease in landlines, and we still have pending legislation in the state of Illinois that they're looking at. I don't know what they're going to do with the cell phone income, whether they're going to keep it or continue to send it to us. That'll have a huge impact if they so choose to do that.
Well, I'm looking like this call box we budgeted for. I understand we can't budget for emergencies, but this 1 4-hour thing is going to cost us $1,750. I'm not for sure if that's even enough in there, but I understand it. I understand budgets are just what they are, budgets.
Well, we do know going in that amount's going to be there.
Right.
Do you suggest we change it or leave it as is?
No, I think. I mean, I just pointing that out.
Okay.
I don't ever recall us having 4-hour staffing on the main box.
In the past?
Have we?
There's been a few times. There's been a few times over the years we've
Yeah,
had.
it's been a long time. But
I mean, we've had it where I've swapped guys out before. It's been so long.
yeah.
How long?
So, off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Obviously, this was the first time this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was from 2011.
It's been a while. You never know when they're going to cut a line like they did. So. if there's no other questions, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to comments or questions. If not, yes, I would entertain a motion to approve this budget.
So moved.
Motion by Dee. Is there a second? Second, Cindy.
Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
Mr. Eads,
No.
Chief Gates,
No.
Mr. McCrockman,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley,
No.
Mr. Poyer,
Yes.
Mr. Clark. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion Next item, you have a copy of our investment policy for this board, pages 26 and 28, 26, 27, 28. There's absolutely no change to that, but we do need to, so states will approve that every year. It mirrors the county treasurer's investment policy. The one exception is that we have stated in ours that we will keep all of our investments within the county and within the financial institutions of our county on as equal a basis as we possibly can.
I move that we continue with the investment policy as published.
Okay. Motion, Cindy.
Second.
Jeff, thank you.
Mr. Eads,
I guess I got a question if I can ask it right quick.
Okay.
Have we ever invested with Sidle State Bank out there? It's a branch in our county, but it's a bank out of our county. Have we ever invested?
No,
with that?
we have not.
All right.
We
And
only
I said
invest. We've only invested with the banks in our county.
Mr. Gates, or Chief Gates.
Well, I have an additional question. Where are we going out of county?
Vermont.
Oh, that's right. I'm
I asked about the building in
Yeah,
Houston.
the building, you got me off guard. Yeah, yes.
Mr. McCrockman,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley,
Present.
Mr. Poyer,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Bill, yes, Mr. Bergen.
Yes.
Next item we have is we would like to form a committee to explore the feasibility of joint dispatching between the city and the county. This was approached probably 5 years ago, something like that maybe. At that time, it's felt that maybe it's time now that we begin to look at that, just explore that possibility and see if there's any advantage to combining dispatching. But this would only be simply established to explore the feasibility of doing that. What's everybody's feelings? Are there any feelings on that, or thoughts or comments?
Doesn't hurt a thing to look into it.
I think the way it was asked is, the goal of this is to see if all agencies can save some money with the way the budget constraints and restrictions are going.
Only makes sense to me.
And it may not be anything in there for anybody. It may not be positive, it may come out negative, but at least we'll take a look at it. And if we will, I want Dee to head up that committee, if you will. And I think that particular committee certainly would include this board, but I think we need representatives from the county, from the city. And I think on this particular committee, it would be nice to try to include someone or individuals from the public who are not directly associated with this, but residents of the county. It'll probably give us some valuable input. So if that's agreeable, I would. Jeff? Motion? Jeff?
Second.
Troy, second.
Okay, Chief Gates,
Yes.
Mr. McCrockman,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley,
I have a question here. seems like the very first meeting I attended, something came up about security issues in the dispatching, and I believe Mr. Reeves asked me something about why would you want to move anything out of here because it's going to be would be cost effective. But now I hear that you're pushing the motion that now you want to look at it. What has changed since then till now?
Well, I think if we get a committee together and we look at the total costs and see if, like I said, I don't even know if it'd be feasible as far as moving anything out or the location or whatever. It probably, I mean, for this board, it's not going to be cost effective. I don't believe for this board it will be. But I believe for the entities involved with the county and in the city, I believe it could be cost effective if we were to play a role in that. With the sustainability of this board paying for all the dispatching, I don't believe that'd be possible with our funding. That's what I meant by that, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Bill, yes. Mr. Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
Yes.
Thank you. This is the time of year we need to elect officers for the coming year. We do have 3 officers, and chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. The first office we need to select is the office of chairman for the coming year. Are there any suggestions for that?
I'll nominate D. Bergen.
D. Bergen, thank you.
Second.
Second that. No other suggestions?
I move the nominations be closed.
Motion to close. Second.
Mr. McCroffin?
Yes.
Sheriff Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Bill, yes. Mr. Bergen?
Abstain.
Mr. Eads?
No.
And Chief Gates?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next office is the office of vice chairman. Any suggestions for that?
Make a motion, Chief Gates.
Chief Gates? Are there any other suggestions?
Nominate Laura Clark.
Second. Bill was not a second on that. It's my understanding, Brian, did you want to be chairman?
This is my first meeting. I'm
That's
trying
what
to catch up on everything.
That's what I just thought that's a real burden to fill things.
If you guys vote yes, I'll do what I can.
Not a second on that, so.
Move the nominations be closed.
Okay. Motion to close. Second.
Wait, I have a question for somebody. Seconds.
Okay.
What happens if somebody seconds the nomination for Chief Gates?
You don't even have to have a second anyway.
Okay.
Tell you the truth.
Okay.
That's my parliamentary procedure.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can do it by ballot.
Okay. Then,
You can do it by ballot on the votes.
Oh, yeah, right. We can have ballot.
okay. So nomination close, or motion to close the nominations. Okay. Second. Second, Dave. Okay.
So what are we going to do then? For both?
It's going to make it, yeah. So what you have to do, you have to either vote for Brian Gates, or you have to vote for Murray Clark as vice chairman. Okay. That's it. Have I got one? Then you got one. The focus for me to open an account, so we have an attorney do that.
I think our attorney can do that. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's what we have to do. I didn't know about them. Yeah.
You don't need a second to
Okay.
nominate people.
Thank you. Don't keep me straight, or keep it straight going on, will you?
Merle Clark.
Maybe those. He's got his hair on something else.
Who was it?
Merle Clark. Six Clark, one present, one Gates.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, do we have the office of secretary for the coming year with any suggestions for that?
Nominate Cindy.
Cindy? Second? Just one second suggestion. Are there any other suggestions for secretary?
Here's your chance, Brian. Jerry to be secretary.
Move the nomination to be closed.
Okay, move second to close. Second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Pointer,
Yes, yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Belton, pass. Mr. Bergen,
Yes.
Mr. Eads,
Yes.
Chief Gates,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Sheriff Motley.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else on the board have any reports? Anything else? Other business?
I have a couple of things. I would request that we advise Nanette not to pay January bills that we elected to exclude earlier, which is the rent, the administrative fee, and the dispatching fee. Don't pay those in advance till we have a time to evaluate stuff.
Okay.
Bring those along with the February bills to the February meeting.
So you don't want to pay the dispatching, so we can, I don't have any answer 911 calls, is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. We just need to
Not to
clarify
pay,
where the
but
money's
not to
going.
pay the money that they're supposed to be paying. Covers their salaries now. If you want to pay them, it's fine.
Well, we just want a clarification of where the money's going. The money, my understanding, and I wasn't on the board, I don't believe when it was originated, but the money was originated to staff the second chair because that's what the agencies out in the county had brought to the board at that time, to have that chair staffed on the evening shift. And it's staffed 7 days a week, the second chair staffed 7 days a week on the evening. But we just need to evaluate that. And we have been told that that is going into the general fund and not to you for dispatching.
Well, it goes to the general fund, but they budgeted, if I'm not mistaken, into my budget for those salaries to cover it. I mean, I budgeted money. I budgeted my money to cover my dispatchers, their sick time, everything. Now,
So that money is coming directly to you?
but it doesn't come back to me. It goes to the general fund, but I do get my money. I mean, I'm paying it up front.
Is there any benefits to that, Jeff? Is there any benefits to that from the county board financial stand of going from 911 to general fund, and then he has to fight to get it, or would it be, can we just, is there a way that we can just transfer it from 911 to sheriff's department directly? Is that?
But I'm not fighting for the money here. It's already. It's in
Yeah,
there.
you're not fighting, you got it.
It's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
It's a line item salary
Okay.
coverage.
Okay.
It's just whether or not you get it back to the county.
So you're satisfied you are getting that for dispatching?
I have, as far as I'm concerned right now, I have my money that I pay out. The county gets that $12,000 back to do it, whatever they need to do with it. If I'm not mistaken, now this changed, I don't know.
Was that payment for the next quarter or this past quarter?
We would be paying December is for the first quarter of
Okay.
12 is what I put in the bills tonight to be paid.
That's
And
why
you
we were
guys
going to
told
just
me
get a
not to pay it,
clarification
right?
out of the new county budget, because I was told that it's not going for dispatching.
We won't get enough money there for dispatching for all the.
So we just need to get a clarification.
You're getting them that money for dispatching.
Right.
Yeah.
The amount of employees that I have with dispatchers, I budget out a yearly salary, plus any personal days and holiday time. It's all put in there. Now, if you don't pay the county, they're out for $12,000 or $4,000 a month, I guess, or $3,000 a month. I'm satisfied that they put the money that I asked for dispatchers.
And
Now,
you're satisfied with manning that chair? If somebody calls in sick, you still staff that chair?
I have to. If I don't,
So the second chair is staffed 20 or
we
staffed
have
7 days
somebody-
a week in the evening shift.
unless I can't get anybody to stay. Otherwise, they're going to end up doing the overtime.
We need,
So,
my question, I guess, that I would like to have an answer to is, do we need something verbiage in writing stating that?
the 12,000 is going from here to the general fund for the purpose of,
For the purpose of dispatching?
I don't know about that.
Because I feel, that's why I wanted to take a minute to research that, is because it specifies what our money can go to. I'm asking, do we need something in writing stating this money is going for dispatching instead of just blankly going into the general fund to make sure that we are doing exactly what the law says? I don't know. Because we were told that it used to go straight to the sheriff's budget for dispatching.
It used to be, I believe, in the line item up there for revenues generated, wasn't it? And one time they took it away from it.
Right. Yeah.
Last year. But this year, when I went ahead and did my budget, I made sure that I had enough to cover it. Not based so much on what 911 was paying. Now, it comes back from 911 to the county into their general coffers. They're getting the money back. But how to write it up just to say that your 12,000 goes strictly to dispatch, I don't think you can do that.
I want to clarify, I don't have a problem paying the 12,000. That's not the problem. I just want to make sure that it's going the proper channels. It's going back to dispatch.
But is it enough? I would sit here and say, no, it's not.
That's a whole different topic.
It has not met the increases over the years.
Right.
We're a little shy of it or something.
That's the only thing that I was requesting, is to give us a chance to explore it and come back to our February meeting to make sure.
And then I'll,
go ahead.
I'd say we're going to have to check with Craig and have the state's attorney in on this and
That's
see where we're at.
Legal advice is to
Legality.
make sure. Because it specifically states in the rules what the money can be spent.
and then we need to go back to, and also sort of like how that originated, why that originated. I mean, there's several factors into this thing.
And also with that, we were going to explore the rent and the administrative fees.
Mm-hmm.
It's a three-way deal. But it's not that I'm opposed to paying it. I just want to make sure that we're doing it right and want to make sure that you're benefiting.
Okay, I need to know when I can, so I don't pay. I mean, it was due to be paid in December, so I'm not to pay it in December.
Bring it to the February meeting
Okay.
as a bill presented for February for the first quarter of dispatching of 2012.
Is there a committee that's going to meet?
Well, first of all, I'd ask you, how do you know that bill was due? Did somebody from the county board send you an email say you owed $12,000?
Right there's an issue of it. So
Right.
That's just part of
We,
it.
Well, I
when
understand
it
if
was
there's an
decided
agreement.
quarterly, we paid it.
If there's an agreement or something, then
we just want to make sure we're doing it.
the right way. That's my concern too.
Is there money now to cover the dispatchers until this?
But since you brought up another question about the money about being paid, this 12,000 you're going to hold is for what months?
January, February, March, and 12.
Okay, so you've already budgeted that money, so it's appropriated money for this fiscal year.
It didn't affect our budget.
We didn't.
We paid the last quarter of the September,
Mm-hmm.
so it was paid too.
But there's a whole number of factors here that as we discussed it. And I'm going to go right back to where we've had a luxury here because we have had a surplus. And of course, everybody knows that, but that surplus was by design for a number of reasons. But we're also now facing a situation where, again, our expenses are exceeding our income by a pretty fair amount. And at some point in time, we've got to, just like everyone else, we've got to look at what can we do to help ourselves too. So, no different than anybody else, we're going to have to make some adjustments.
And it may need to be adjusted by what you're saying too.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not paying enough for that, but that's stuff that we need to get in order for the February meeting.
I go back to Mr. Porter's question, was there going to be a committee to study this?
I think probably.
Obviously, we can't make a committee without having it as a motion on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I think the committee for joint dispatching will definitely look into that.
Yes, they will.
I think it's going to be identified real quick because that's what the city and the county is going to have to bring to the table. How much are you paying now before we can decide if we can save anything?
Sure.
But I don't want to jeopardize anything for the dispatchers though for the next, but I think Sheriff Motley clarified that it was okay.
Okay.
She said we had to make a motion to make a committee.
There has to be a motion on the agenda.
What did you do here?
That was for joint dispatching.
But you created one.
Yes.
Through
a motion.
He said there wasn't one on the agenda.
He asked about making another committee.
A separate one.
Yeah, separate.
Right, just to look into these fees.
We would have to. So I think that's going to come to the table real quick. And, that's my next item is this joint dispatching committee. I'm going to formulate and get a meeting set up in December so that we can start identifying the objectives and the goal of where we want to go here with this. As far as the members go of the committee, we're going to ask for a representative from, obviously, we would like to ask Parish Police Chief, the Sheriff, a representative from the County Board, which we would like to ask Carl, since he has been Sheriff before. On the city side, we were going to ask for Paul Ruff to be on it. From the community side, we were going to ask Scott Ingram. He has experience as a firefighter, and we were going to ask Doug Cochran, who used to be the fire commissioner for the city. That's the members we've identified at this point. Is there any other people that...
It's an all-male group here.
And we would recommend Cindy come and take the minutes.
No, but I think you can find somebody within the community that's had, experience in this area. But I do think we need to have a female represented in that group.
No problem. Does anybody have a recommendation?
When were those people identified?
So you might want to think maybe Don Wiseman might be a good one.
Yes, Treasurer's office, since maybe for the city, if they have a treasurer.
These are just ideas, right?
These are just ideas.
You're right. But these aren't anything except...
There's nothing set in stone. We're formulating this, and obviously it will be posted and presented in the proper manner according to the Open Meetings Act.
Well, I think, depending on, my opinion is that there probably needs to be a dispatcher involved.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
From one of the other entities.
Yeah.
I don't know how it'll affect. It'd have to just be presented as voluntary. I don't know how that'll work from a management standpoint, paying somebody to sit on the committee, but it'll, right, I know, but I'm just saying that it'd have to be presented to them as being a voluntary deal, but I would ask that a dispatcher be involved if nothing else. And that could be some of your, the females that Cindy was talking about. I'm sure we could pull from that candidate pool.
Again, Dee's going to head this up.
Once again, I want to reiterate, this committee is going to have a simple goal to explore this option. All we are doing is exploring it at this point to see if there's a cost savings for agencies involved.
If it's even feasible.
If it's even feasible before. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take several months. Unfortunately,
there are some counties not too far from us that have successfully pulled this together, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got some experience we can draw from.
most counties and city governments are going to this for cost savings.
I think so. I mean, it all comes back to the budget crunches and those types of things. So, anything else, Dee? Okay. Does anyone else have anything?
When we get those signed blanks, we buy blanks, I know this, right? Do we just take them to the county and they do the letter form or state, or how's that work? We get it fired up, do it like stick on them?
They're special ones too.
Anything else? Need a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Ryan?
Yes, Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
Yes.
Chief Gates?
Yes.
Mr. McCrocken?
Yes.
Sheriff Motley?
Yes.
Mr. Pointer?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes. Thank you all.